Welcome back to Listen Up with Phil and Rye. UConn wins another game, back-to-back wins, 62-44, the final score from the barn in Minnesota. Record attendance today in Minnesota. A lot of people came to see and watch the return of Paige Bueckers. Unfortunately, I was unable to watch the game today. Got home about 10 minutes ago, but Phil has some words for us on the game. UConn again winning. Final score 62-44.
All right, Ryan. So I don't know how many more times I'm going to sweat bullets from watching these UConn women's basketball games. This was another close one. Not gonna lie. And again, after I get done the game recap, a win is a win, right? A win is a win. So again, they won. Great. That's amazing. Still, it goes back to my University of Maryland UMD Terps last check-in that we had. I raised some eyebrows, and I told you some concerns, and they're still there on the table. Obviously, we can only say that it's still early for so long. I don't think we're going to get to January and February. I don't think you're going to hear Ryan saying, well, it's still early. So, but, first of all, homecomings. Oh, my goodness. Homecomings are lovely, Ryan. And I don't know if you caught word. They had about I was like, man, Ryan would smile at this. I think they had over 100 people just waiting for Paige Bueckers, right? Family members, friends. So that brings the pressure. That brings the pressure. I get it. So, but again, who else is better than Paige Bueckers to survive under pressure? I don't think anybody. So the whole team put in a great effort. And Minnesota came with their A game today, Ryan. I even caught some words in the Gino post-game press conference that I'll go over with you. Let's start it out. Opening lead, Minnesota. Minnesota's Mallory Hire scored the first points of the game. And then Edwards responded, Ryan. It was 3-2 Minnesota early. It took a while for UConn to score in the opening quarter, Ryan. And they started off a lot slower than I can remember in recent history since we had this podcast going. Ducharme, Caroline Ducharme made an early exit as far as just Gino pulling her out and putting her on the bench. I kind of did not like that, although I don't mind ever. I always love to see KK Arnold play, right? We always love to see KK Arnold play. But I want to see a little bit more out of Ducharme, down the stretch. She exited this game very early and sat on the bench, and KK came right on in, Ryan. 5 turnovers for the Huskies to start this game. Kind of a sloppy start. Minnesota, again, was good on defense early, moving their feet well in transition. UConn was outshot 21-9, and that was the end of the first quarter. It was 11-9 UConn at the end of one. Second quarter, Ryan Edwards opens the second quarter with a nice layup. It was 13-9 UConn. This young lady by the name of Grace Gacholski hit a big three, and boy, did they keep coming, Ryan. It was 13-12 UConn to pull Minnesota within one. The Huskies, they had good looks, but the ball was not falling. UConn, they didn't get the help inside like they should have been. Leah Edwards was the only one. Gacholski again, Ryan hit a big three, and that gave Minnesota a 2-point lead, 15-13, with 7 minutes in the second. There were a couple of charging fouls, lots of mistakes. Again, early mistakes by UConn. Bueckers gave UConn the lead, 17-15. She stepped up nicely. Ducharme called her second foul of the game. Paige passes the ball. I wanted to mention you, Ryan, the passing lanes. I mean, she reads it and she passes the ball greater. I'm sure you already realize this along with everybody. She passes the ball better than I've ever seen anybody pass a basketball. It almost looks like a quarterback, in the NFL. I mean, it's just right there. When you need it in your hands, it's right there. It was 21-16 UConn. This was, if I caught the right word, I believe that this is right. This was the lowest scoring half this season from UConn. 26-23 UConn at the half. Ryan, we started the third quarter. UConn, they just simply needed to box out more and rebound the ball more to really pull away. And that's just what they did. Ducharme, Edwards, and Mule started to open the game up finally for UConn with some layups. and the Huskies were figuring it out offensively. Finally, the Huskies had good defense most of the game. 33-25 UConn with 4 minutes in the third. And Ryan Mule and Brady, they had a couple big threes. KK Arnold stepped up in the third quarter. KK's aggressiveness before the third quarter, I loved that. I absolutely loved that. She did a nice job to draw the foul right before the third quarter was over, Ryan. And it was the first appearance from Kate Samuels, got substituted in just prior to the end of the third. And just when you thought the fireworks went off before the end of the third, KK wasn't done. And then it was KK Arnold again with the fireworks, another 3-pointer, Ryan. And I was like, I was sitting at work. I was like, bang, but I mean, she floated it up in the air and it went. It was good for another 3. Then that was the end of the third. 47-29, UConn started pulling away. And then we had the fourth quarter. Kaden Samuels with her first layup of the game to start the scoring in the fourth. Samuels had a good steal. DeBerry came in toward the end. Came in with about 2 minutes remaining. And then Betancourt substituted in for Paige, so she could sub out and get a nice standing ovation with about 1 minute left. Jumping over to Gino's post-game press conference, he simply talked about moving the ball better. When you watch UConn Huskies basketball, the ball usually moves, and he brought up these 2 road games saying that the ball just hasn't simply moved the way that it should be. And we want to get Ryan's take on that. And it's concerning. I think again, I don't actually have a TV, or I don't have the monitor right here in front of me, but I'm not quoting him exactly, but I believe he said it's concerning. I believe that he said that, somewhere to the effect that he has his own beliefs, why the ball isn't moving on the road. Simply these last 2 road games, Ryan. But he said, he also brought up about the homecoming for Paige Bueckers. He said, you can't ever really lose playing the game of basketball. And he's thankful for that. So I thought that was nice of him to say. But, simply basketball talk. No update on AZ Fudd. Still no AZ Fudd in this game, obviously. Hopefully that we have an update on that once they get back home. She's walking around pretty good, I believe. So if you want my theory, Ryan, my 2 cents, and I'll turn it over to you. I simply think that this team, I know a lot of people are not high on AZ Fudd. I think by now I am. You put her back into a healthy AZ Fudd, that is, back on this team. I think again, there's always something to work on, but I think that you see a completely different team. That's how I think she has that potential. We don't see it every game, but you put her back in there, Ryan. That's why I'm crossing my fingers. I mean, to think about this now, it keeps you up all night.
I did see where Gino said hopefully UConn will have an update on AZ when they get back home to stores on campus. So I agree. I mean, I think UConn really needs AZ. I don't know. I think it's weird that UConn's really struggling to score the ball on the road against NC State. Obviously, NC State, really good opponent. Minnesota, I talked about how talented they were on the offensive side of things. I'm not sure how talented they are on the defensive side of things, but it seemed like they played pretty good defense today. But I just think overall, it seemed like both teams, the basket had a lid on it for both teams today. I mean, UConn only shot 20% from 3, under 50% from the field, which is a rarity for UConn. But for Minnesota, unfortunately, they shot even worse than that, only 26 from the whole entire field, 17% from 3. That's not going to win you too many games. But I think it is. I think it's pretty concerning that the UConn's having trouble scoring on the road. And like you said, it seems like their offense just isn't clicking. The ball is not moving as much. So, I mean, those are some things that we're going to have to figure out pretty soon, sooner rather than later. And I think, for Caroline, I really like Caroline. She did some amazing things in her freshman year, sophomore year, battled those head injuries. And unfortunately, it seems like it's kind of been the same story so far this season. I know we're only 4 games in, but it seems like something's still just not right with Caroline. So hopefully, it just doesn't seem like she's fully healthy. So,
Mhm.
I'm not sure what the case is there. Hopefully, we get AZ back, and I think having AZ, in the starting lineup over Caroline would maybe help the team a little bit. Like I said, I really like Caroline, but it just doesn't seem like something is totally 100% right there. But Paige Bueckers had a great homecoming game. It seemed like Aaliyah dominated in the paint as usual. And I think, one more thing, little concerned about it. I've mentioned it before. Didn't really think it'd be a big problem, but it seems like it is. It seems like UConn, it seems like they're struggling down low. It seems like Aaliyah is the only player that's really dominating in the paint. I think Ice, she can shoot the three. She's a tall presence down there. But, her missing all last season, still technically being a freshman, I think that's hurting them a little bit, not really having the depth. Again, Ayana's still out, so maybe when she comes back, that'll help him a little bit down low. But I think two big things: UConn struggling to score on the road, and just overall down in the paint. It seems like they're struggling a little bit to keep up with some of these teams in the paint.
Yeah, and Gino also credited Minnesota for doing an awesome job. I think I mentioned to you on the last check-in, Ryan, that Minnesota is a team. I mean, they started like 3 sophomores, I believe. So this is a
Yeah,
team to be reckoned with for a long time in the future. These players are going to get better and better down the stretch, and as they get older, is according to Gino, and he's very excited to see this team and what they can do in the future. But very young team, and they stuck to their game plan um, even in the third quarter when UConn was running away with the game. So for so long we've talked about UConn struggling down in the paint, Aaliyah Edwards, her getting some assistance and some help. I just want to mention to you, Ryan, going down the stretch, and I agree it's still too early, but if you really think about these elite teams, what they do in March, I think a lot of people that watch you and I, and again, some will agree, some will disagree. That's fine. That's all about, you and I coming on here and having discussions. I don't know. And I haven't heard you bring it up in a long time. I know we saw a team by the name of the Florida Gulf Coast. We saw them a couple years back, a year or two ago down at University of Maryland. And they lit up our eyes when they played in March Madness. When we went to see them in March, and it's only one thing because they won. Their life depended on the three ball. Now I'm not saying
yeah.
you have to do that if you're UConn. But Ryan, 3 point percentage for UConn today was 20%. They were 3 for 15. All right, I'll say it again: 3 for 15 on their 3 point attempts. So 15 attempts, they had three pointers. Gino in his press conference today, he said somewhere along the lines of, if we're not getting at least 25 attempts a game, that's not playing UConn basketball. So I just want to bring that up because I haven't heard you say it. Correct me if I'm wrong. As much as it is talk about importance down low, I'm just thinking, is it more important to eventually get heated up behind the 3 point line? Because I don't know. In my opinion, that's what these programs do best when it comes to March is they kill you with the 3 pointer. I mean, you've seen it, I've seen it.
Yeah, yeah, it was really fun to watch that Florida Gulf Coast team. It makes me really nervous when a team lives and dies by the three. If that's their game, fair play to them. And I agree with that. I think UConn definitely need to shoot the three ball more. Again, that's part of AZ Fudd when she comes back.
Mhm.
Obviously, those numbers will go up. I would assume, and I hope those numbers will go up when AZ comes back. As good of a shooter as she is. Paige
Yeah.
also 0 of 5 from 3 today, so a little uncharacteristic from her.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I just think overall there's, struggling to score the ball today overall, but I think that's something that needs to be incorporated into UConn's offense. I think
Yeah.
we talk so much about just passing the ball. Everything seems so easy. And so far this season, it hasn't come that easy against Maryland. Second half, first game, it was pretty easy, but we've seen some struggles. So I think if UConn can heat up a little bit from the three, so they're not depending on having that post presence every single game and worrying about getting dominated in the paint. I think the three ball would definitely help. But I think, again, we talk about offense so much, but I just think UConn's defense is what's going to win them a majority of the games
Yeah.
throughout the
Yeah.
whole entire season, throughout March Madness, if we get there or when we get there. I just think their defense leads to pretty much everything that UConn does.
Yeah, defense wins championships, Ryan. You're right. And Maura Braun for Minnesota today, she was a player to watch. She had a lot of good looks, and she's a great basketball player. And I'm just glad that you and I are celebrating a win on this Sunday night, a UConn win, because Ryan, this thing could have gotten ugly if UConn wouldn't have pulled away in the third quarter. So let's get down to the comments, and then we will get on out of here so you can hit the pillows, like you say, Ryan. Let's jump over to this person goes, "Hey Phil, the next time you have to sit next to Ryan, I got an old New York City phone book you can borrow." Oh, right. Yeah, it's wild he brings up New York City. You and I passed by the outskirts, right? But we wanted to stop so bad, but Ryan's like, nah, I think we'll take the train up, Phil. It'll be a lot easier.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things, New York is one of those things we want to visit, especially and when we go back to stores as well,
Yeah.
and Hartford, visit those different cities, visit the campus. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, New York is a little scary if you haven't been there. I've never been there, but yeah, definitely looking forward to in the future visiting because it looks like a beautiful city.
Okay. Lindsay Matthews, another point about the atmosphere. Remember, many of the students haven't seen a regular UConn season because of COVID and the injuries, etc. So you are seeing a lot of students who are now seniors who have not seen a lot of UConn basketball. And I think the ones that are there now are having a totally new experience. Also, recently, UConn had an opening night event at Gamble, was packed. Get your UConn bumper sticker so that when you drive through Connecticut, we'll know you're one of us.
Yeah, and we definitely need to get more merch too. So, maybe we need to need to get on the ball. Christmas coming up, Black Friday, so maybe we need to order some things and get some good deals. But yeah, I mean that is a good point. I think COVID definitely messed a lot of things up, and I'm sure for the students it is a lot of first time, maybe not first time, but just first couple times visiting Gamble and that atmosphere was just incredible. So it's definitely good to see. I think it definitely gives UConn an advantage, and it's probably part of the reason why UConn plays so good at home. But hopefully they pick it up a little bit on the road.
All right, Ryan, we'll head on out. We have a trip to the Cayman Islands coming up, Ryan, and we will have the last check-in Wednesday night, just prior to Thanksgiving. Ryan, just to ask you very quickly, there was a reporter in the news conference, press conference after the game today. They asked Gino about, can you change these slow starts? Is there anything to change it? Because Ryan, I mean, you're talking about a team, a team basketball team, number four UCLA.
Yeah, and nobody's home or away, so I guess we we
Excuse
don't
me,
really have to.
I'm seeing number three now. So I guess they got bumped.
Yeah.
Number three UCLA.
Yeah, UCL is definitely a good team. Lauren Betts, they got Lauren Betts, so I mean that's part of the reason why I think they got a lot of young players as well. I'll have to look at their roster more, but I guess nobody's really home or away, so we don't really have to worry about
Yeah.
maybe the road struggles. Hopefully the break kind of gives UConn a little bit of rest. Hopefully AZ can return by then, maybe Ayana as well. So hopefully we get a couple players back, get some rest, and hopefully UConn looks pretty fresh going into that game.
Thanksgiving week, Ryan. The turkeys are gobbling. It's Phil and Rye on Listen Up.